Good morning, Tom. Good to hear from you.
It's always a pleasure to hear from you, Graham, and I've got something on my mind this morning.
What's that?
I've got flooring on my mind because people are stepping all over me here on the show today, as usual. I wanted to talk to you because you're an expert in this field, an expert in home renovations and custom home builds. Flooring is a big part of any renovation, right?
It is, inside and outdoors. You need to cover the floor with something, absolutely.
You got to find the right product. We have a very special guest on the program today that can talk to us about that subject.
Absolutely. Well, I've invited InezBrazAM from Surdell Carpets. Welcome, Inez.
Hello.
It's nice to have you back on the show again, Inez.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be back.
I hope you're ready because Graham and I just have a ton of questions for you.
Well, I hope I'm ready too.
All right, Graham, let's get this thing going here. When we start to do a home renovation or a custom home build, flooring is very important. How does that all fit into the big picture? Where does that come in?
Inez is also an interior designer, so she really pulls in with our team in helping homeowners not just select floor coverings, but how it works with the rest of the design. Whether you're renovating or remodeling an existing single room like a bedroom or a family room or a kitchen, or you're doing an entire house, it's important to have a good team assembled. And so Inez fits in really great with our team. Inez, as you're thinking today, and you're getting asked questions by not only our clients, but just clients in general that come into your showroom, what are some of the most asked questions about whether it be carpet or hardwood surfaces? What are the biggest things that people are looking for in those materials?
Good question. Most of the time, they're wanting a durability. For example, if they have a family, if they're looking for hardwood, they want something that's going to be scratch resistant, that's going to hide stains. One of the things I do ask them is how many children they have, whether they have pets, how long they're going to be living in that house too, because if they're wanting a quick resale, they're planning to just freshen it up to sell after a year, I'm going to show them totally different products than if they're saying, okay, this is a home that we're going to be in for many years and we want it to stand the test of time. And we have 5 kids and 2 dogs, and we want something that's perfect for that.
Well, exactly. Also, Tom, when we're looking at design, I know that there's so many materials out there, not just in floor coverings, but there's so many different options for homeowners when they're picking, whether it be cabinetry and plumbing fixtures and so forth. And a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of choices when it comes to floor coverings, but often they just go by what they see either in a catalog or in someone's showroom. So, Inez, when it comes to selecting materials, what are our options? Is it just what we see when we walk into a showroom, or what other options are available to us?
There's so many options, and that's something that I love to work with. If a client comes in and says, I want an area rug, but I can't find anything out there, can you do a custom area rug for me? I want these certain colors, I want this certain pattern. That's something that I can do for them. With cork flooring, we do a lot with glue down cork in custom colors and in different sizes and patterns. That's something that people are often not aware of until they speak to me and I can show them, different ideas. Same with linoleum. Natural linoleum has a lot of interesting colors, and you can actually cut medallions and inlays and borders into that. So people aren't always aware of it. It's not something that when you come to a showroom, immediately obvious. When you look at samples, it's something that a design consultant such as myself is there to do, to make that person's home that much more individualized and make them have their own stamp on their home.
You mentioned cork. Now, how about bamboo? Is that still popular, or is that a passé concept these days?
I'm not selling bamboo as often as I was a few years ago. It's more an acrylic impregnated wood, for example, that I'm doing really well with, or hand-scraped hickories. That seems to be more what I'm selling these days.
Don't you find also people are more educated on indigenous product to our area, and bamboo is not necessarily from the Pacific Northwest, and people are looking to a lot more floors that replicate the Pacific Northwest more?
That's very true, because I find that there's a resurgence in interest in oak, for example, and maple, more the domestic woods. And it's interesting because a few years ago, I was selling a lot of exotic woods, such as jatoba,
Brazilian hardwood,
and all of that. And maybe it's because the trend is away from the red tones in wood, so that is part of the reason. But I think people are looking more to domestic products for other reasons, too.
Let's turn our attention now to carpeting, because I'm sure that's a big, big subject. Inez, tell us, when people come into your shop and they're shopping around for carpeting, what are some of the questions they're asking you?
They're asking me, what's going to be the most stain-resistant carpet, what's going to stand the test of time as far as looks. Sometimes people will come in and they'll look at shag carpeting and they'll say, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea because it might be just a trend. So they want something that's going to be more timeless, that's going to be stain-resistant, that's not going to flatten out, that's going to be cost-effective. A budget is always a consideration as well. The cream of the cream when it comes to carpet is wool, but of course that's usually in a higher price point. If somebody's going to stay in the house for not as long a period of time, they may not consider wool. Certainly for durability and long-term longevity, wool I'd still recommend as.
What about maintenance when it comes to carpets?
Smart Strand is probably the easiest to maintain because the stain resistance is built right into the carpet and it's not a topical treatment that eventually wears off. And most stains come out with just warm water, so it's so easy to clean. We've actually even done tests with Smart Strand where we've poured red wine on a piece of Smart Strand carpet and had it sit there for 2 weeks and then rubbed it with warm water, and really most of the stain came off just with the water alone and no solution. So that was pretty effective.
The most important thing, Tom, is that people are considering replacing their flooring or renovating a given room or space is to have a complete plan so that everything makes sense. What we approach and what we ask Inez to do with our clients as well is we make sure that we're listening to what their needs and their wants are so we come up with the right product, but also all the products or all the materials and all the way in which we might renovate a particular room, whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom, whether it's a family room, whether it's a whole house, is figuring out how all that goes together. And so planning is key.
And if you have a plan, you're thinking about doing some renovations in the house, give Graham a call over at My House Design Build Team. If you're thinking about flooring, carpeting, he'll get you in touch with Inez. And before we go, Inez, I really have to thank you and Graham for coming and saving me and getting rid of the burnt orange shag carpet here in the studio.
It's about time.
You're absolutely right, and it looks just so much better. I think I just might move into the studio.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
It's always a pleasure. Great advice as usual, Inez. And thank you, Graham. Let's do this again next week.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.